Hey guys, welcome to the Gods Unchained beta with the TheProfesserf. Alright, it's time for our Monday Mythic Meta for the ranked weekend event that ran on June 11th, 12th, and 13th. Let's take a look at the results. Alright, first thing to talk about is this past weekend was a double rewards weekend ranked. So depending on the number of wins you got and also what rank you were, your prizes were doubled. Sounds great. And another thing to talk about, which I highlighted here, so this was an announcement in the GU Discord, was right before the ranked weekend event started. There was something that happened that was bigger than a balance change, bigger than a nerf or a buff to a card. This was actually a change to the matchmaking. So a change was made to the queuing process where now each player, depending on their rank, will more likely play someone of the same rank. So I think that has huge implications. So let's see how the ranked weekend event shaped out. All right, so here's our top players. And what we can see is the top player had 23 wins, no 24 wins like previous. In previous weekends, we saw several players with 23 and 22 wins. And now we can see that there's only 4 22 game winners and 3 21 game winners. As usual, these are unofficial results. So 9th and 10th place for the extra prizes are still open. Now let's start to look at our decks and meta. As I mentioned earlier, this weekend was a double rewards weekend, and that was because last weekend, the weekend ranked event was canceled. So we do have a gap here in the data, but we're picking up right where we left off. So our top 20 players, 7 of them played Magic, 6 of them played Death, and 5 played Light. So even though we missed a week, we can see that the trends pretty much continued here. Magic, Light, and Death remain the top gods. And at the bottom here, we have 1 player each that finished in the top 20 that played Nature and Deception, and no player that played War finished in the top 20. Prior to the matchmaking change, we could already see that Deception, War, and Nature were already not represented well in the top 20. In the top 10, Death took first place, third place, and eighth place. Light took second and seventh. Magic took fourth, fifth, and ninth. The 1 player that played Deception finished in sixth place, and the 1 player that played Nature finished in 10th place. So taking a look at our wins, again, we have the gap because there was no ranked weekend event last week. We can see that the best Death deck had 23 wins. The best Light and Magic deck had 22 wins. The best Deception deck had 21 wins, and the best Nature deck pulled out 20 wins. We don't see War here because the best War deck finished with 18 wins. Let's take a closer look at our top decks. Our best Death deck had 23 wins. This one's the controlled Death deck, board wipe, specializing in removals, ramping up, card draw, more removals, and lots more removals. Neferu, Black Blood Blast, Apocalypse Now, and End Times. Your goal is to stall and remove, and then transition into your late game with the cards that we're all familiar with, Demogorgon, Hylian Elite, Tiet, and also being able to pull cards back with Trial of the Underworld. If you don't have most of those Genesis cards, here's another flavor of Death that requires different kinds of Genesis cards. This one focuses more on the lower curve. This one is one of the best versions of Death that specializes in going wide and doing swing turns where you're putting a lot of stats in one turn. You're trying to get to 15, and while doing so, you're doing it in a controlled fashion. Self-damage with Soulburn, Amazon Heart Eater to control the board. You can go really wide quickly using Demonic Offering, Cruel Overseer, Deathwish Tanatar. And then you have your heals to maintain your health. Going so low, you have Return to the Cave and Fleshbind. This version of Death managed 22 wins, so it's quite formidable. Our best Light deck finished with 22 wins. This one's the Light Zoo deck, where you're looking to use your early game of strong cards like Blind Martyr, Ritual Rods, Pyramid Warden, Skeleton Heavy, Vanguard Axewoman. You're throwing in some creatures with Ward to maintain control of the board like Bartleys, Bright Mage, Highborn Knight. And as you stick these creatures, you protect them and buff them with Master of Indulgences, Canonize, Holy Enchanter, and then you top off with Asterius to give them additional +2 attack and +2 health to finish out your opponent. The key strong cards in this deck are Master of Indulgences, Canonize, and Highborn Knight. If you don't have the full Genesis package, here's another version of a Zoo Light deck that has a little bit of Genesis cards like Pyramid Warden, Master of Indulgence, and Canonize, supplemented by Wellcore cards and trial cards like Olympian Guard, Battlement Luminary, and Wicked Fae, along with Drider Sailweaver. Not having the full Genesis package, you will see a drop-off in wins and win percentage, and of course player skills also is a factor. Our best Magic deck finished with 22 wins. This one follows the usual base build of removals, Star Shard Bolt, Tracking Bolt, and Ramp with Sip of Elixir and Guardian of the Gates. This one is tweaked a little bit with more removal with Form of Power, and also some mana reduction like Warp Engineer and Assistant Alchemist. Interesting add here with Recovered Knowledge to allow you to pull 2 spells that cost 3 or less from the void that you've used back into your hand. So you could reuse your Sips, your Tracking Bolt, Star Shard Bolt, your Form of Power, and even runes from Corrales the Rune Moth. You do have your usual strong endgame with Astric, Circe, Frey, Avatar Magic, and Demogorgon. Our best Deception deck finished with 21 wins, and following the theme of earlier decks, this one's control as well. This one focuses on sleep control, controlling your opponent's board by putting them to sleep. Spellbound puts creatures to sleep. You have Sleep Dart, Obsidian Dagger, Elixir the Panther, Exercise, and then you also have strong removals like Mugging, Hunting Trap, Umber Arrow, Dreamstalker, Rapture Dance, A Toast to Peace, and Orpheus Guile. Our top nature deck finished with 20 wins, and this is the only deck in the top 20 that did not run any kind of Genesis cards. So although nature is not winning as many games anymore, it's still viable to have a deck without Genesis, but you're just forced to play nature at this point. Playing nature in this meta can get a little rough, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But this deck has the standard strong opening cards from nature. You have your Chiron, Marshwalkers, Black Jaguars, Canopy, Skeleton Heavy, Vanguard Axewoman. You have Selena, Overgrown Rhino. Lots of good stats here. Ironclad Minotaur. You have your strong Jaguar Staff, a Veil Warden Minotaur, and a Pious Giant. Our best war deck had 18 wins. Although not in the top 20, 18 wins is very respectable. This one also does not have any Genesis cards and uses the Onslaught build and idea. You try to run your early game to control and remove your opponent's board, and you focus on removals with relics, twin strike creatures like Nockfiend Pillager and Trojan Battle Mage, and then you have your mass clears like Carnage Sweep. You have a deadly creature like Harvest Arachne to take care of your opponent's big threats, and you're looking to realize late game value with strength in numbers. All right, now let's take a look at our meta. So the first thing that I want to point out is with the new matchmaking change, Mythic players are more likely to play other Mythic players only and maybe Ethereal Diamond. So I've changed the filter now to just reflect the Mythic players. Before, it was common for Mythic players to play players all the way down to rank 8. But now with the matchmaking change, I want to make sure that we only capture the Mythic playing field. So in the Mythic playing field, we can see that Death is at the top, has the best win rate and the second most popularity. So in the Mythic level, lots of Death is being played. To counter Death, you're seeing some Light. So Light is the third most popular at 17% and also a 52% win rate. Pretty good. Light has positive matchups against all the other gods as well. And then you have your standard Ramp Magic, which is still really good at 52%, but has a pretty low representation. The reason for this could be that Ramp Magic requires a lot of expensive cards that are harder to get, so that could be driving down the popularity of Ramp Magic. Also, Ramp Magic has a tough matchup between Death and Light, and those two are also very popular and sees a lot of play. So I mentioned earlier that Nature was able to pull 20 wins, It's still the most widely played, even at the mythic level, not quite as much as the lower levels. And the reason for that is nature has a lower win rate in the mythic level. Nature really struggles versus death and magic, and that's about a 50-50 with light. So with a terrible win rate versus death and magic, which makes up about 30%, and then you have light, which is a 50-50, that's 50% of the meta. So nature is having a rough go at the top levels. It's great for the lower levels, but against premium control decks like death, magic, and just light's speed, nature might not be a top option at the mythic level. And we have deception and war at the bottom here. War at the very bottom. War is the second least played at 10.8%, and that's the lowest win rate. But for war, I'm not really sure what the solution is for this. Maybe we could do some sort of buff to war. Maybe something like giving the creatures protected or something and see what happens. All right, so that's our Monday Mythic Meta report. Here's our top players again. Congratulations for earning those extra prizes. And also a big congratulations to everyone else that did really well this weekend. This was a true test of skills with a tougher matchmaking. So if you did really well, you could pat yourself on the back that you were able to handle the tougher competition. So this is just the first week of the change. So we'll see how this builds out as we have more ranked weekends with this new matchmaking system. All right, and last thing, this was a double rewards ranked weekend. So everyone that did well doubled their prices. So congratulations and good luck on your packs when you receive them.